She mistook a millionaire for a homeless man and lent him $10. What happened next shocked everyone. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The soft hum of conversation filled the elegant restaurant in downtown New York City. Silverware clinked gently against porcelain plates, and warm amber light floated across linen tablecloths. Every dish looked like a piece of art. Every guest seemed polished, confident, belonging. But at the door, a young woman named Emma Brooks hesitated. Her reflection in the glass window showed a nervous smile and a thrifted navy dress with a slightly frayed hem. Her shoes were scuffed, her hands trembling around a small purse. She whispered to herself, "I promised Jenny I would not back out." Taking a breath, she stepped inside. The hostess smiled. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, table 7, Emma answered, her voice soft but shaky. She scanned the room, murmuring, table 7, like a mantra. Her eyes landed on a man sitting alone near the back. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his posture confident but calm. A leather watch peeked from his cuff, catching the light. That must be Kevin, she thought, straightening her shoulders. Her pulse quickened. She walked toward him, forcing a bright smile. "Hi, you must be Kevin. I am Emma. Nice to meet you." The man looked up, surprised. For a brief second, his eyes flickered with confusion. Then, something changed. Instead of correcting her, he smiled faintly and said, "Hi, Emma. It is nice to meet you too." "Oh." Emma let out a tiny laugh, her nerves unraveling. "Blind dates are always strange, right? Jenny said you might be quiet, so I guess I will talk enough for both of us." Liam Parker, who was not Kevin at all, leaned back slightly, studying her. Her voice carried no pretense, her smile was genuine, her words unpolished but warm. He decided to play along. "You are right," he said. "Blind dates are definitely something else." Emma giggled softly, picking up the menu. "You look more relaxed than I expected. Jenny said you are the kind of guy who does not talk much." "I guess she was half right," Liam replied, amusement glinting in his eyes. The waiter approached, pouring water into crystal glasses. The restaurant's chatter softened into a low hum. Emma took a sip to steady her breath. "So, what do you do?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "I work in technology," Liam said vaguely. "Technology, that sounds cool. I cannot even set up my phone without breaking something," Emma joked. "I am a waitress, by the way. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Most of them, anyway." He smiled, leaning forward. "Sounds like hard work." "It is," she admitted, fingers fidgeting with her napkin. "But I like meeting people. Some nights I sketch them afterward. Faces, moments, small things. I do not want to forget." "Sketch?" Liam repeated, curiosity sparking. "Yeah," she said shyly. "I paint too when I can afford supplies. Someday I want to open a small studio, maybe teach kids. I know it sounds silly." "It does not sound silly at all," he said softly. Their eyes met for a brief heartbeat. The noise of the restaurant faded, replaced by something quiet and tender. She laughed nervously, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You are easier to talk to than I thought," she said. "You too," Liam replied, his voice low, sincere. For the first time that evening, Emma relaxed. She did not feel judged or out of place. She forgot about the mismatched world outside the luxury around her and the rent due next week. For a moment, it was just two people talking. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. A message from Jenny blinked across the display. "Hey Emma, where are you? Kevin is waiting at table 7. Hope you two hit it off." Her smile collapsed. Slowly, she lifted her gaze to the man across from her. "You are not Kevin, are you?" Liam hesitated, guilt flickering through his eyes. "No," he said quietly. Her cheeks flushed crimson. "Oh my God," she whispered, standing abruptly. "I am so sorry. I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." "Wait," Liam said, rising too. "It is all right. You did nothing wrong." But she was already gathering her bag. her voice a nervous rush. "No, no, I cannot, this is mortifying." She hurried out of the restaurant, head down, the sound of rain meeting her as she pushed through the door. Liam watched her go, an unexpected ache blooming in his chest. He had not meant to deceive her. He had only followed an impulse, something about her openness, her honesty, had felt like a breath of air in his carefully curated world. Now she was gone, and he could not explain why that bothered him so much. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the streets of New York City still shimmered under the faint glow of streetlights. Emma Brooks walked quickly, clutching her coat tighter around her shoulders. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she replayed the night in her mind. The wrong table, the wrong man, the wrong everything. Her tiny apartment on 32nd Street felt even smaller when she returned. She kicked off her shoes and sank onto the couch that sagged in the middle. The silence pressed down like a weight. Her roommate Jenny was already asleep, her soft snores drifting from the next room. Emma sat in the dark, hands trembling as she opened her sketchbook. The first page was filled with faces she had drawn during her shifts at the cafe, customers, co-workers, strangers who left a mark on her imagination. She flipped to a blank page and began sketching the man from the restaurant. Liam Parker. She did not know his name yet, but she remembered his eyes, calm, focused, a mix of kindness and mystery. She told herself she was only drawing to forget the humiliation, yet the lines came to life on the page. When she finished, she closed the sketchbook gently and whispered, "You probably forgot me already." The next morning came too early. The subway ride downtown was crowded and loud, the air thick with the smell of coffee and damp coats. Emma balanced her backpack on her lap, her phone buzzing with a text from her landlord. "Rent is due today," she sighed. Her next paycheck would barely cover groceries. At the cafe where she worked, the morning rush began like a storm. Steam hissed from the espresso machine, and customers barked orders without looking up from their phones. Emma moved between tables, smiling automatically, the ache of last night buried beneath routine. She placed a cappuccino in front of a man reading the newspaper and forced herself to sound cheerful. "Here you go, sir. Have a great day." Hours passed in a blur. By noon, her feet ached, her apron smelled like milk and cinnamon, and her sketchbook peeked out of her bag, her silent companion. When the door chimed again, she barely looked up, but the air shifted. A familiar voice ordered quietly, "1 black coffee, no sugar." Emma froze. Slowly, she turned. It was him, the man from the restaurant. Liam stood at the counter, dressed simply in a dark sweater and jeans, his hair still damp from the mist outside. He looked out of place in the small cafe filled with college students and office clerks, but his expression was calm, almost hesitant. "Hi," he said when their eyes met. Emma's heart skipped. "You," she managed. "You are the man from—" He nodded. "From the restaurant. I wanted to apologize." She blinked, speechless. "Apologize? For what?" "I am the one who sat at the wrong table." "I could have told you right away," Liam said softly. "But I did not. I do not know why. Maybe because you seemed real. And I have not had a real conversation in a long time." Her guard wavered. "You do not have to say that. You probably just felt sorry for me." "No," he said firmly. "Not at all." The barista handed him his coffee. He paid, then looked back at her. "When do you finish your shift?" She hesitated. "In about 2 hours. Why?" "Let me buy you dinner," he said. "No mix-ups this time. Just 2 people talking." Emma laughed nervously, shaking her head. "You really do not give up, do you?" "I try not to," he said, smiling faintly. Something about his voice made her pause. There was sincerity there, not charm, not flattery, just a quiet warmth. Against her better judgment, she nodded. "All right, dinner. But I am choosing the place this time." He chuckled. "Deal. When he left, she stood frozen behind the counter, the hum of the cafe fading around her. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of excitement, not about love, but about being seen. That evening, they met again, this time at a modest diner tucked between a bookstore and a laundromat. The neon sign buzzed faintly, and the smell of fries and old coffee filled the air. Emma wore her cleanest sweater and tied her hair into a messy bun. Liam was already waiting, sipping water. "No fancy restaurant tonight," she said with a grin as she sat down. "I like it," he replied. "Feels honest." They talked for hours. About art, about how New York City felt both beautiful and cruel, about how she worked double shifts to keep her dream alive. He listened, really listened, and that alone made her feel lighter. When he walked her home, the street was quiet except for the hum of a distant taxi. She stopped by the steps of her building, her breath visible in the cool night air. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For not making me feel small." He looked at her for a long moment. "You are not small, Emma." The words stayed with her long after he left. She did not know who he really was or why she felt drawn to him. But something about that night, like the sketchbook in her bag, felt like the beginning of something that mattered. The days that followed felt softer somehow. The city still roared and rushed as always, but for Emma Brooks, the noise had lost its edge. She worked her shifts, carried trays, smiled through exhaustion, but now there was a new rhythm in her days, one she could not quite name. Liam Parker stopped by the cafe again, just once or twice a week. Sometimes he ordered coffee and quietly watched her work. Other times he sat by the window sketching on his tablet, pretending to be busy while she passed by. Their conversations grew longer, more personal, small windows into who they really were beneath the surface. One Thursday evening, the cafe was nearly empty. Emma was wiping tables when Liam spoke softly from the corner booth. "You draw people a lot," he said. "But do you ever draw yourself?" She looked up, surprised. "Not really. I do not like seeing myself that much." "You should," he said, stirring his coffee slowly. "You have this way of seeing beauty in everyone else. Maybe it is time to see it in you too." Her cheeks warmed. "That sounds like something you read in a book." He smiled. "Maybe I did, but I meant it." She sat across from him, tucking her knees under the chair. "You talk like someone who has lived more than one life." He hesitated. "Maybe I have." Then, quickly changing the subject, he asked, "If you could go anywhere, anywhere in the world, where would you go?" Emma's face softened. "There is a park near the East River. On quiet mornings, artists set up their easels there. I go sometimes before work. It is not far, but it feels like another world." "Take me there," he said. The next Sunday, they met at dawn. Mist hung low over the city as the sun rose pale gold behind the skyline. Emma led the way, her breath visible in the cool air. She carried her sketchbook under one arm. The park was quiet, only the sound of pigeons and distant traffic. She pointed toward an old bench by the water. "That is my spot," she said, "where I pretend I have my own studio." Liam looked around. "It is beautiful." "It is small," she said. He shook his head. "No, it is real." She smiled, sitting down and opening her sketchbook. The pages were filled with soft charcoal drawings, faces, hands, eyes, little fragments of strangers. He leaned closer, careful not to touch the paper. "These are amazing," he said. "You have talent, Emma." She laughed softly. "Talent does not pay rent." "Oh, maybe not," he said. "But it builds something no one can take away." The way he said it made her heart shift, like a quiet door opening inside her. They spent the morning talking about art, about choices, about what made people good. When she drew him, he sat still, his expression unreadable, the wind teasing his hair. "Do not move," she said. "I am trying," he replied with a grin. She finished the sketch and held it up. "See? Not bad." He looked at it, surprised. "You made me look better than I am." "You do not look bad in real life either," she said quickly, then covered her mouth in embarrassment. He laughed a deep, genuine laugh that made her laugh too. Hours slipped by unnoticed. They bought hot chocolate from a food cart, shared a pretzel, and watched children chase pigeons near the fountain. For the first time in years, Emma forgot about her worries. The bills, the double shifts, the tiny apartment all faded into the background. As the sun began to sink, Liam walked her to the subway entrance. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" she asked. "For letting me see your world." She looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "It is not much." "It is everything," he said quietly. When the train doors closed between them, Emma caught his reflection in the glass. He was still standing there, watching the train disappear. That night, she could not sleep. She sat by her window, the city glowing below, sketching from memory his eyes, his calm, the way he made her feel seen. On the last page, she wrote 3 words in small, careful letters. "Work in tech." It was the only thing he had ever told her about his job, and somehow it felt like a secret waiting to unfold. Outside, the wind rustled through the fire escape, carrying with it the scent of rain and city lights. Emma closed her sketchbook and whispered into the quiet, "Who are you, really, Liam Parker?" She did not know that the answer would soon turn her world upside down. A week later, the city buzzed with the kind of spring energy that made everything feel alive. Flowers bloomed in street planters, and the air carried the smell of roasted chestnuts and rain-soaked pavement. Emma Brooks was running late again, her apron tied loosely, her sketchbook tucked under her arm. The cafe where she worked was busier than usual, filled with the sound of laughter and clinking cups. Just as she was refilling a coffee pot, the doorbell chimed. She looked up, and there he was again. Liam Parker stood in line, wearing a gray coat and a quiet smile that somehow made her heart skip. "You are here early," she said as he reached the counter. "I wanted to see you before the day got too loud," he replied. Her cheeks flushed. "Well, congratulations, you found the loudest place in Manhattan," he chuckled softly. "Then maybe we should go somewhere quieter after you finish." Emma hesitated. "I have another shift tonight." He leaned slightly closer. "Even artists need a break." The way he said it, gentle but sure, made her give in. "Fine, but you are buying lunch." They walked together through the park near the cafe, where the trees had just begun to sprout new leaves. The world seemed softer there. They talked about everything: her childhood in New Jersey, his strange fascination with street performers, her dream of one day teaching art to children who could not afford lessons. When she laughed, he looked at her like he was memorizing the sound. As they sat on a bench near the water, Emma noticed the watch on his wrist, sleek, silver, and far too expensive for someone who claimed to work in tech. She raised an eyebrow. "You do not look like a regular office guy." He smiled faintly. "What do I look like then?" "Someone who is used to nicer things," she said. "Maybe a boss. Maybe someone pretending not to be." He laughed, deflecting. "Maybe I am just bad at dressing down." She wanted to ask more, but he turned the question back to her. "Do you still go to the park to draw?" "Every Sunday," she said. "It is the only place that feels real." "Then I will come next time," he said. "I promise I will not talk too much." She smiled. "That would be a first?" Over the next few weeks, their connection deepened. Liam began showing up at the cafe near closing, helping her wipe down tables, pretending to fumble with the coffee machine. They started meeting at her favorite park every weekend, talking until the sun went down. She told him about her father's old toolbox that she kept as a reminder of working hard. He told her about how easy it was for people to forget kindness once they had too much. Every word, every silence between them, drew them closer. One evening, as they walked home, rain began to fall again. Liam took off his coat and placed it around her shoulders without a word. It smelled faintly of cedar and something clean, something expensive. "Liam," she said softly, "you never talk about your family, or where you live. Why?" He stopped under a streetlight, the rain streaking down his face. "Because sometimes the truth changes everything." She looked at him, confused, but he only smiled a smile that hid something deeper. "Let me hold on to this moment a little longer," he said quietly. "Please." She did not understand then what he meant. But later, when she would remember that night, she would realize it was the first time she saw the storm behind his calm eyes. For now, she only nodded, tightening the coat around her shoulders. As the two of them walked through the rain toward the glow of the city, unaware that the truth waiting ahead would shatter everything they thought they knew, spring melted into early summer, and with it came new light in Emma Brooks's life. The cafe where she worked felt brighter somehow, the long hours softer to bear. Every Sunday, she and Liam Parker still met at the park by the East River. They brought sandwiches and coffee, sometimes sitting in silence, other times talking for hours about everything that mattered and nothing at all. He had become a constant in her world, a quiet presence that steadied her. She noticed small things about him, the way he always paid in cash, the way his phone never rang when they were together, the way his gaze sometimes drifted toward the skyline like he was watching another version of his life play out there. One Sunday morning, Emma arrived early, sketchbook in hand. She found him standing near the railing, looking out at the water. He turned when he heard her footsteps, a soft smile touching his face. "You look like you are waiting for someone important," she teased. "I was," he said, and now she is here. She laughed and sat beside him on the bench. You are too smooth for a guy who works in technology. He smiled. Maybe I am just good at pretending. Oh, they shared a quiet breakfast, the city humming softly behind them. When she finished her coffee, she opened her sketchbook and flipped to a new page. Do not move, she said. I am going to draw you again. He leaned back, pretending to relax, though his eyes stayed fixed on her. She sketched quickly, her pencil moving with purpose. When she finished, she tore the page carefully from the book and handed it to him. Here, she said, a souvenir, for when you forget me someday. I won. I will not forget you, he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed something else, a trace of fear, or maybe regret. That evening, Emma stayed late at the cafe to cover for a coworker. By the time she closed up, it was dark. The street outside was quiet, the air heavy with the smell of rain. She locked the door and started walking home, cutting through the narrow alley behind the bakery. Halfway through, a black car pulled up beside her. Two men stepped out, one of them holding a camera. Miss Brooks? The taller one asked. Do you know Liam Parker? She froze. What? Who are you? We are from the Daily Metro, the man said. You have been seen with him several times. Are you aware he is the chief executive officer of Parker Tech? Her mind went blank. That is not possible, she whispered. The men exchanged glances. So you did not know? Before she could answer, one of them snapped a photo, the flash blinding her. Thank you for your time, Miss Brooks. They got back into the car and drove away, leaving her trembling in the alley. Emma stumbled home, her thoughts spinning. She searched the name on her phone. The result hit her like a wave. Liam Parker, founder and chief executive officer of Parker Tech Industries. Philanthropist. Multimillionaire. Her breath caught. Every image, every headline, confirmed what the men had said. She dropped her phone onto the couch and stared at the wall, tears stinging her eyes. He had lied. The next morning, she went to the park at dawn. The bench was empty, the water still. She waited for hours, but he never came. Her heart ached with confusion, betrayal, and disbelief. When she finally stood to leave, she noticed something resting on the bench. It was the sketch she had given him, now framed behind glass. A small note was tucked beneath it. I wanted to tell you everything, but I was afraid of losing what felt real. Her fingers trembled as she held the note. The truth was out, and the lie that once felt harmless now stood between them, like a wall too high to climb. For the first time, Emma wished she had never sat at the wrong table that night. The next evening, the city lights of New York glimmered like shattered stars across the river. Emma Brooks walked aimlessly through the streets, her hands buried deep in her coat pockets. The truth still echoed in her mind. Liam Parker, the quiet man who said he worked in technology, was actually the chief executive officer of one of the biggest companies in the country. The man she trusted had built his entire life on everything she had never been allowed to touch: power, money, privilege. Rain began to fall, light and cold, tapping against the pavement like tiny reminders of her mistake. By the time she reached her apartment, she was soaked, her hair sticking to her face. Jenny opened the door before she could knock. Emma, oh my God, what happened? Your picture is online. What? Emma whispered. Jenny handed her phone over. A news headline flashed across the screen. Tech millionaire Liam Parker, seen with mystery woman. The photo showed Emma in the park, sketchbook in hand, smiling. Her heart dropped. They followed us. Jenny bit her lip. You should call him. Let him explain. Emma shook her head, her voice trembling. He already did, just not with words. She held up the note she had found on the bench that morning. He was afraid of losing what felt real. But lying is not love, Jenny. It is fear dressed as kindness. That night, sleep would not come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, the warmth in his smile, the sincerity that now felt like an illusion. By dawn, she made her decision. She walked to the office tower that bore his name, Parker Tech Industries, a glass monument slicing into the clouds. The guards at the entrance looked at her curiously, but before they could stop her, the elevator doors slid open, and Liam himself stepped out. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rainwater still clung to her hair, and exhaustion shadowed her eyes. Emma, he said quietly, stepping forward. "You should not be here. I had to see you," she said, her voice breaking. "To hear it from you. To hear the truth." He looked down, guilt carving deep lines across his face. "Everything you saw is true. I am who they say I am. But when I met you, I just wanted to be someone ordinary, someone who was not defined by what he owned." "You could have told me," she said, her tone trembling between anger and heartbreak. "You had so many chances, Liam. I told you everything about me, my debts, my dreams, my struggles, and you sat there pretending to be someone else." He reached out, but she stepped back. "I never pretended about how I felt," he said softly. "You have to believe that." Her tears fell freely now. "I do not know what to believe anymore." Reporters were already gathering outside the building, shouting his name, snapping pictures. Security tried to move them back, but the flashes lit the lobby like lightning. Liam glanced toward the windows, then back at her. "You do not deserve this," he said, his voice low but steady. "They will write stories, twist everything. But I will protect you." "Oh, I do not want protection," she said, her voice rising. "I wanted honesty." The silence that followed was louder than the noise outside. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Goodbye, Liam." He watched her walk away, each step slower than the last. For the first time in years, Liam Parker, man of logic, precision, and power, had no words, no control, and no plan. Only the hollow sound of the revolving doors closing behind her, and the quiet certainty that the best mistake he had ever made might also be the one that would break him forever. Weeks passed, and New York City moved on as if nothing had happened. But for Emma Brooks, every sound of the subway, every headline, every flicker of light in a cafe window carried a shadow of him. She had gone back to her routine, but her heart felt heavier now, as though something had been quietly taken and could not be replaced. She worked double shifts at the cafe again, avoiding the park, avoiding the news. When customers mentioned Parker Tech, she forced a polite smile and changed the subject. The world had turned her story into gossip, but no one knew what it truly cost her. One gray morning, as she mopped the floor, her manager called out, "Emma, there is someone asking for you." Oh, she turned, her breath catching. It was not Liam. It was an older woman, with kind eyes and a familiar warmth. "Hello, dear," the woman said. "My name is Margaret Carter. I work with the Parker Foundation." Emma stiffened. "I do not want anything from them." Margaret smiled gently. "You already gave us something, your kindness. You helped him see what his money could not buy." She handed Emma an envelope. "He wanted you to have this." Emma opened it hesitantly. Inside was a letter written in Liam's careful handwriting. "Emma, I am leaving the company for a while. The board will manage things without me. I needed to rebuild something. I broke, starting with myself. I have started a new project, the Open Hands program. In your name, it will help young artists find their voice. You once said talent does not pay rent. Maybe now it can." She read the words twice before tears blurred the ink. Inside the envelope was a single item, a small key attached to a tag that read, "Studio 1, East River Art Center." That evening, she took the subway to the address. The building was quiet, newly renovated, filled with light from tall windows. Canvases lined the walls, blank and waiting. On the center table sat her old sketchbook, framed behind glass, next to a note, "This is where your story continues." Emma pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. The anger she had carried began to loosen its hold. He had given her space, not apology, opportunity, not guilt, and somehow that meant more. For the first time in weeks, she picked up a pencil and began to draw. Her hands shook, but her lines were steady. The hurt had not vanished, but beneath it, something new had started to grow: hope, fragile but real. 6 months later, the East River Art Center stood alive with color and sound. The Open Hands exhibition was opening night, and every wall was covered with paintings from young artists who once could not afford a canvas. Reporters moved through the crowd, flashes of cameras reflected off the glass windows, and soft jazz played from a live band in the corner. Emma Brooks stood near the entrance, wearing a simple cream dress, her hair tied back loosely. She was no longer the waitress who hid her dreams in a sketchbook. Tonight, she was the director of the Open Hands program. the woman whose belief in kindness had created something bigger than herself. Yet, beneath the pride, her heart still carried one unanswered ache. As she greeted guests, a familiar voice came from behind her. "You turned a dream into something real." She froze. Slowly, she turned around. Liam Parker stood there, dressed in a dark suit, his expression quiet but full of meaning. The crowd seemed to fade away. "Liam," she said softly. "You came. I would not have missed it," he replied. "This is your night. I thought you were gone for good." "I thought so too," he said. "But I kept seeing your name on letters, on the foundation's reports, on the walls of what you built, and I realized I did not want to stay away anymore." Her eyes shimmered, torn between forgiveness and pain. "You hurt me, Liam. I trusted you." "I know," he said. "And I will never ask you to forget that. I just came to tell you that you were right. Love is not about pretending. It is about showing up, even when it is hard." The host announced her name from the stage. Emma hesitated, but Liam stepped aside, gesturing toward the microphone. "Go on," he said gently. "They are waiting for you." She walked to the stage, her heart pounding. The audience quieted as she spoke. "This program began with one act of kindness," she said. "Not from wealth, not from fame, but from a simple belief that helping one person can change everything. Tonight, we celebrate that belief." The applause rose like a wave. When she stepped down, Liam was waiting near her favorite painting, the portrait she had drawn of him in the park. A small plaque beneath it read, "The man who taught me to see." He looked at her, his voice low. "You gave me a second chance at being honest. I hope someday you can give me a second chance at us." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached out, touching the edge of the framed sketch between them. "Maybe someday," she whispered. He smiled, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled back. The night carried a feeling she had almost forgotten: peace, fragile and bright, like the city lights shimmering on the river outside.